Welcome, everyone, and welcome back to this online therapy podcast. Thank you for continuing to listen. It's been a little bit of a hiatus, courtesy of COVID and being so busy out in the online therapy world. So thank you for rejoining us for the podcast in this series 3 of the online therapy podcast. Welcome back. I've got a new guest with me, completely new guest. And we're completely changing tack. And I think it's just the sign of the times where it's going to be something quite different. And we're going to be doing a series with a lady by the name of Maria Krystyna. She happens to be a colleague of mine. We go a fair way back. And I thought we would change it up in the online therapy podcast world. So welcome, Maria.
Hi, Renee. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you going?
Oh, a little bit nervous, but I'll be fine.
Yes, I'll try and go easy on you. So today's going to be, for everyone out there, getting to know Maria and what she does. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Maria, and if you can explain to our listeners who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Maria Krystyna, and it is my real name. And I'm a psychic and a medium. Both modalities are actually different from each other. People get a little bit confused, but it was about 10, 12 years ago that I actually got involved in attending workshops and circles to develop my psychic and mediumship skills. I've always loved the unknown. I've been a great dreamer. So my dreams were like a movie. So I would wake up in the morning and I would remember everything to a T, and then sometimes I would get funny little thoughts, and then all of a sudden those thoughts would happen or appear in front of me, and it was really, really hard not to acknowledge them. And it's been an interesting journey. It's not an easy journey because it's all about discovering who Maria Krystyna was or is.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. So with that little bit about yourself, that kind of gives us a little bit of an idea of how you got into this. What I'm wondering is how you actually work and how you've been adjusting to life post-COVID, because certainly why I originally contacted you was like, this is cool. Maria's got into Zoom sessions, and I wanted to get to know a little bit about what Maria was doing in the online space.
It was really funny about how I connected with Zoom, because I'll do that next year. And when COVID came, next year came right now when COVID hit us. So it was a brand new skill for me because I'm not very good with computers, but I hopped in, I gave it a go, and I was actually impressed that Zoom was actually quite easy. I don't have a problem with the connection when I do a reading, and in some ways I found that the connections were actually better because you're not getting in the personal space of the person as in one-on-one. And I think at one time, Renee, you mentioned that, the electricity is a conduit for a connection. And I agree with that. And so I did my workshops on psychic development. I do my intuitive tarot classes on Zoom, and works out really well because, it's just really good. It's
excellent. Yeah, so you've adjusted to this new world of tech since all of this kind of stuff has happened, and I guess I just was hoping that the listeners would gain some access into how and why you did what you did just recently. Give us a little bit of an idea of what an average psychic or mediumship client might be wanting from you in a session.
It's always about love, work, and money. That's what the main subjects are. And it's also about, when you have a disagreement or you're separated from loved ones and you want them back in your life and you want to see what happens. But it's more about, the emotional problems that life comes in. You know, people want insight to pain and heartache. They want to know about their future. You know, does he really love me? You know, so it's a whole mixed bag of things. And then you have the people that just want to go with the flow. They just want to see what's out there happening for them.
Interesting. So how much, because often there's a little bit of a misconception out there about how much people come to you for, you know, looking at if their loved one died, like what actually happened. That's often what comes in, like I need to go to see a psychic for a reading around my mother died, my father died, my sister, my brother, you know, someone close, a friend or what have you. How frequently is that with people who come to you?
I find that people actually want a psychic reading, and that's more about the past, present and future. A mediumship reading is totally different from a psychic reading. So well, you've got to combine the psychic and the mediumship together in a reading. But usually, you know, they miss their parents or their loved one, or they feel alone, and, you know, or they just want to just have that feeling that they're still around. And, you know, it's some people go and have a mediumship reading within the first week of the passing. And it's quite okay to do that too, because you don't need a time frame to wait for your person to connect with you. But in saying that, you may find that you need the right medium to bring that person through. And, you know, and it's mediumship is a beautiful, beautiful gift. And the only way I can explain it, everyone benefits from it. The client gets to connect with their loved one. The mediums themselves get to sit with that God power, and it's very healing all around for the spirit, for the loved ones, for the client, and for the medium. That's how I feel with my connections.
Yeah. So how much does that constitute your practice as a psychic medium?
I would say mediumship's a little bit less than what a psychic reading is, but that's okay. It's not everyone is interested in a mediumship reading. I know when I first started getting readings done, I wasn't interested in a mediumship reading because I had no one that I knew that was dead. So, you know, it was always about my future. But, you know, eventually, as I was thrown into mediumship, because I never expected to be doing this work, it just happened, I found that, you know, it's just a beautiful connection. You know, it's not an easy connection, but it is a totally beautiful connection to have with spirit and for the client.
Great, thanks Maria. So I'm going to have obviously a number of more questions for you because, you know, this is fascinating. We were talking off camera before, and just before we started, around the difference between, say, a psychic, a medium, and a therapist, like someone like myself.
Yes.
As a psychotherapist, because this series is all about the psychic and the psychotherapist. And I guess I'm wondering, from your perspective, what do you think you offer that's different to therapy, and where do you think therapy is different to being a psychic? Does that make sense?
Yes. Obviously, a psychic or a mediumship reading is totally different to therapy, okay? But in some way, we are a therapist. We do give advice, but we don't give medical advice. We don't give financial advice. I mean, that's only your decision to make, no one else's. But it's healing. It's a spiritual healing. A psychic reading and a mediumship reading can touch the soul of the person and given some sort of hope that, you know, when things go all wrong, there's still something out there. But, you know, you need the balance there. A psychic and a medium are not trained unless they've taken the education to do a therapy work. But, you know, I suppose what it is, the therapist goes to uni and learns all the techniques and the know-how and the understanding, whereas psychic and a medium actually work from their life experience. Most people that do this work have come from a family background or a life background of a lot of pain and heartache, or life experience, whichever way you want to say.
Yeah, thank you. Because I do think there's a lot of similarities, Stephen, in what you say, and particularly myself in coming from a transpersonal angle. I'm very much in the transpersonal psychotherapy perspective. And, you know, if you look down the Jungian path and the other kind of process-oriented transpersonal psychotherapies and modalities, that route, plus also in the quantum realm, there's so much going on that is very, you know, close to psychic mediumship potentially. So I do think there's an element of similarity and differences in both. And I think this is going to be the course of our conversations together about, you know, if, you know, we probably will be able to look at the different kinds of people and say, for example, if you got Jane coming to you for a reading and she was having trouble with her relationship, how would you deal with it? And maybe I could talk about how we're doing. It'll probably be in a work in progress how we talk to these kind of things over the few weeks we're going to have together, and it will you know, depend on what we decide to put the focus on. But it's certainly I'm keen for us to be able to talk in the future about how we might be working differently, and also to familiarise people with what you might be able to go to a psychic for, but what you might be able to go to a therapist for, and what the difference is. Because there's a lot of people who've come to me saying, some of what you do is a little bit on that edge, Renee. And so, but also what is different about it too, and mental health concerns sometimes can hold you back, but sometimes a spiritual angle can really assist people too. And I certainly work on that realm as well. So when you talk about providing hope, how do you do that with psychic mediumship or psychic, being a psychic or a medium?
The hope side of psychic and mediumship is about upliftment. You make the person feel valued, to be quite honest. You show them that, you know, if I use my own abilities, I will get thoughts there. And, you know, the thoughts could be telling me that, you know, your path is going to be okay. If I use tarot cards, the tarot cards would, you know, could tell me the outcome of what's happening. And it's about, you know, I go from my own life experience. When my life was falling apart when I was 24, I went to a tarot card reading, and she gave me hope, made me feel like that my life was worth living when the odds were up against me. And that's my main aim in a reading, that I give hope. Some people may say that it's all too positive, but, you know, I can't give doom and gloom all the time. It's all about making that person move forward when they feel they can't, you know, because they're stuck. It's a bit like what you do. You push, you know, you keep the person moving forward, not sitting in the now or going backwards. It's all about pushing them forward, or encouraging them to go forward, I should say. But it's you know, and a lot goes on the client, because if the client's not open, nothing will happen. They'll stay stuck. And, you know, no matter what you say, if they're not open to receiving, they won't move. Their life won't change. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So I have another question, because a lot of people would probably want to have this question answered, but they might not ask it as a client. How did you uncover that you had these skills to begin with?
The bottom line is I always thought I was special. That's all I can say. As I said, most people that do this work, they come from a background of pain and heartache, or they had a really difficult life. I always believed I was special, but I allowed my ego to get in the way because I didn't understand what that word special meant. But we're all special, aren't we? We just don't know it. And my imagination, I have a fabulous imagination, used to always get me into trouble. But I found when my life the day I married my first husband was my first time that I ever got an intuitive side to my abilities. I didn't understand it. I went to kiss him and I heard a voice in my head, "Don't marry him." And I thought, don't be stupid. That's a silly thought. And I married him, and 4 years later, the marriage fell apart. And even though that's a very sad time, spiritually, for my own connection, it was a brilliant time because that's when I recognized it, even though it was a bit late. So I understood that I needed to listen to my intuition, my passing thoughts, because that's your intuition, that's your psychic, talking to you. And so, as I said before, a lot of my stuff would come through the dreams. Passing thoughts. I remember cutting out material on the lounge room floor, making clothes for my children, and this passing thought came in, I wish I could, buy a new sewing machine. The phone rang and it was my sister saying, "Maria, I'm updating my sewing machine. Would you like mine?" And, so many little things that, I didn't understand. If I told people, they look at me as if I was an idiot. Even my own father, I said, "Oh, Dad, I had this dream someone's going to give me this old, bright, shining car." And he said, "Well, good luck to you." Well, about 12 months later, my father passed and I got my father's car. So, it's sort of, when things like that happen, you just can't close the door on it. You've got to think, how does that happen? Where does that come from? Is it me just making it up? Or, and in my time, back in the, late 70s, early 80s, there was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to go.
Yeah, great. So, and when, I guess there's so much in that. I know that you go way back, and there's quite a history that you've got, and we were talking again off air about yourself in regards to just some of your life experience and what kind of has led you to where you are. I'm wondering how you feel like your life experience comes into play with being a psychic.
Oh, I actually think my life experiences is what brought me here. I have to say that. And it's a good thing, because I'm feeling quite emotional with that, because if I didn't have all those life experience, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't have what I've got now. I wouldn't have, I tell people I have a blessed life. And that, people would think, okay, but I don't go on about how I suffered to get my blessed life. And once again, it goes back to the hope, knowing there was something special about me that I could, either manifest or I could work through it. And, and I'll be the first one to put my hand up. I've had many struggles to get where I am. And it hasn't been easy. I've had to work really hard. And, I had to, I suppose, learn many lessons once again. But, doing this work, it's not a shared work, right? It's your personal work, your journey with God, with spirit, whoever you want to say it is. It's your personal journey. And I feel that once you can acknowledge that, the doors will open. And that's what I found.
Yeah, wow. So I've always thought of the psychic mediumships work, and I've been to a few over time, which is why I like to have people like yourself on, because really I think we've got to support each other in these times of turmoil. What do you think your life experience has taught you about how to deal with what's gone on in the world in the last 20 months? Because it's certainly been a bit crazy. I just want to hand that over to you.
Oh, life in the last, 18 months, I think it is, has been totally crazy. Where before the 18 months, I thought I had everything down packed. And we never have our life down packed. We're changing constantly. We're evolving constantly. And even when we think that everything's fallen apart, right, we somehow, doing this work, I've learned you can pick yourself up and still move forward. I feel, even though we're sensitive souls that do this work, I feel somehow we do get through it a lot easier if we didn't have that understanding. And spirit does come in and they work with you, and you talk to them. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. You just have a conversation and say, what are you doing to me? Why has this happened? And then spirit steps up and does something, and you think, oh, okay, so this is meant to happen. And and that's how I found the 18 months for me. It hasn't been an easy month to me. I've actually stepped away from people, that, well, the group of people that I used to be with, not because I disliked them. I just felt I needed to do this on my own. I needed to stand in my own power when it comes to my work. I still, and I feel okay with that, especially when, I've always had that feeling of wanting to belong. I feel okay about being on my own. And I suppose in some ways in the last 18 months, and with my work and my trust in spirit, I'm okay with that. And not many people like their own company.
That's really good to think about in terms of for our podcast here, and our conversation and our continual conversation is, how okay are we in our own skin? This is for everyone out there listening, because a lot of professionals listen to this podcast and a lot of therapists listen to it. But I certainly wanted to change tack, because I do think there's an element of us needing to look towards a more positive future at the moment, because there's a lot of doom and gloom. What do you see and what do you predict from a perspective of being a psychic? Because it's another reason why I thought I should and could have you on around. I believe in the future, a lot of people in business might need someone like a psychic working alongside them, just to help almost future post themselves. What are your thoughts around that and what's to come for the world?
I believe that, people have to start trusting themselves and not cutting themselves short, or, selling themselves short. I do believe that, psychics and mediums have been around for years. It's nothing new. It's just that, a lot of people are a little bit scared of it, or they're too over religious. And I'm not getting into the religious side. I'm a good Catholic girl. But, people will, even in my own experience, I've had famous people come to me. I've had people that are connected with famous people. I have had police officers come to me. So everyone is interested, so it's nothing new. And I think in the last, say, 10 years, people that do this work have actually come out more in the open, and people are actually interested. But it's not so much for the reading. I do feel people want to connect to their own abilities. And their own abilities have been there all the time. It's just that they chose, or their upbringing chose for them not to connect.
Yeah.
So I do feel psychic and mediumship isn't going out the door. If anything, it's going to get richer. The thing is, what we need to do is, you know, there's always good and bad in everything, or not so good in everything. We need to just make sure that, you know, the people with ethics and integrity are the ones that are shining the most.
Exactly.
In this work.
Here. You know, because certainly that's been a big deal for me in my profession, is that there's been a lot of really terrible things going on in this online and social media space in particular. And it's a little bit of a dog's breakfast out there when it comes to professionalism and clients not knowing who to go to for online therapy or telehealth with a psychologist. And a lot of people literally just jumping into this space, not even thinking about their clients. And I love that you think that this is only going to grow, because that's actually what I believe too. It's another reason I thought I should have you on, is because I think more therapists are going to need to work alongside psychics, because of the carnage that's happened and the amount of trauma. There's been death on both sides. I've heard of deaths from vaccines. I've heard of deaths from COVID. I've heard of injuries from everything. There is just stuff happening and things coming out of the woodwork that is just literally nuts. And the amount of corruption that we're seeing in government and the amount of dictatorship that's going on, I do have this sense that we are all going to need to start coming together more on a spiritual level. And so I'm just kind of wondering what your perspective is on that.
When COVID first came out, I had a client that wanted to know my thoughts about COVID. And I thought, you know what? It's this time, this period of time is all about you. It's all about taking care of you. It's all about getting to know you. If you focus on the negativity of what's happening, and I'm not saying you turn a blind eye, but if you absorb it, you actually, it's an energy or you know, a vibration that you end up picking up, and it becomes a blockage within your system. So when COVID first came out, I thought, I'm not going to allow this, what's happening in the world, to get to me. I'm taking this time to work on me, to love me, to heal me, for me to grow. And it hasn't been easy, right? It never is. But, you know, I do feel we will have a light at the end of the tunnel with this COVID. It's just another stage in life. And we've been there before, if you look in the past, and we've worked hard to get through it. I'm going to be quite honest here, Renee. I think too many, you know, gone are the days when we accepted things for the way they are. Now we're, you know, too many opinions have actually rocked the boat and have made it really, really hard for everyone. And
on all sides of the fence, I'm saying. So finding the light within, and I would agree with you 100% on that, and to find the light within in order to grow as an individual, in order to love more, to be more, to do more for your community, rather than coming and worrying about what everyone else is doing. That's not going to do you as an individual any good. So this is, I think, the biggest issue at the moment is, are we then going to just follow along with what everyone else does, or are we going to make sure that we look after ourselves as charity starts at home? And I do have this sense that not enough people are thinking like this, that charity starts at home first, because that's kind of in the smaller communities around us, when we're being told to, do all sorts of things and not be very neighbourly. Well, Jesus himself talked about loving our neighbour even if they're our enemies. So, I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Loving our neighbour and our enemies. I'm still struggling with that, to be quite honest. People do disappoint me, but I work through that because I actually think, well, if they disappoint you, it has to start off with you, Maria. So I am working through that. But it is about, taking care of yourself. It's really funny, when we were little girls, you'd have your girlfriends say, oh, you love yourself. But you know what? We have to love ourselves. It's not the ego, because loving ourselves, we're actually taking care of our souls. We're taking care of our mind. It's not just the outside, it's also the inside we need to take care of. And that's what we're lacking, is self-care of ourselves.
Yeah, I love that you've brought that in, because I'm all about self-care, self-compassion, and that's the way I work with a lot of my clients. And so I do a lot of that kind of work with my clients, and it's essential for us all. And as a therapist, if I don't do that for myself, I wouldn't be able to keep things going. And I certainly keep up things like my intentions that I do every day, and try to take my time in doing my work rather than rushing around. I think there's been a lot of rushing around and a lot of kind of disturbance. I'm going to talk about it as psychic disturbance. I think it's a lot of psychic disturbance that a lot of people have got, as well as psychological disturbance. And so even in psychology and counselling, we will talk about psychic disturbance. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are around that, Maria.
I have to admit, Renee, that's the first time I've ever heard of psychic disturbance. I would have actually thought that it would have been more that we become very impatient with life, and we want it now, instead of wanting it to unfold the way it should be. And because we become, I always label it the spoiled brat attitude, okay? And I don't say anything unless, if I've been there, I say it. So we get impatient. We want things to be fixed now. We want it now. And we're actually putting more stress on ourselves because it doesn't happen. We get disappointed. And all you have to do is just actually look at how you're doing it. And you're doing it all wrong because you're putting demands on yourself. And, when you put demands on yourself, doors close. And it should be, okay, I trust, I believe. And, it may not happen tomorrow, but I know it's going to unfold and work for me. I have to say this, as humans, we've become more complicated, more complex, and we want to take control of life, of the world, and instead of trusting. What?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree. I guess I was also going a little bit further with that concept of psychic disturbance. So, and this might be something for us to have a ... kind of conversation about maybe next time, and maybe something to think about, because I certainly see probably a little bit of the more mental health disturbance, let's call it like that, where someone might have depression, anxiety, stress, trauma, grief, loss, you name it,
Yep.
relationship, breakups, breakdowns. I work as a couples therapist, family therapist, and I do all that work as well. And it's just fascinating when people come in that there's a lack of understanding, I've found, particularly over the last 18 months to 2 years, of how they might be impacting on their partner, or how they might be impacting on their loved ones, because there's a lack of self-care and self-love, because they're running themselves ragged, because of all the requirements. And it's a little bit of a circular problem, because there might be more expectations at the workplace. There might be more expectations even just to go out and do something in life. There's all these expectations now. and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and and now you need to do this, and things keep changing, but there's more rules and requirements. And part of that I've noticed that comes into the client field in the work that I do is that then there might even be more demands on me from a client side too. And in the past, it would be unheard of to ask about lots of different things. There's all this kind of pushback that's not appropriate, socially speaking. And so what that leads to is almost like a psychological stuckness to the point at which it almost can't be shifted or changed in certain people. If they were already stuck prior to COVID, let's go there. So if there was already depression or mental health already there, what I'm noticing is it's now becoming almost psychotic in some people's instances. And I guess I'll give you a funny example. It's when at the start of COVID, there was all the toilet paper stuff. That's a really good example. But there's other examples of that too. There's other examples of it in politics. There's examples of it in the community. And so I guess I'm hopeful, but I'm concerned also because of being a psychotherapist of what's to come with the nature of human psyche coming at us. So I'm interested in what your thoughts are then of that.
Life is now complex, right? We make things harder for ourselves, and humans have become very sensitive. It's like as if they've never learned to stand in their own power, and your own power is the strongest power, mentally, physically, you'll ever have. And I just feel if we could go back to basics, instead of having all the expectations put upon us of what's expected of us, and we breathe and sort of say, okay, I can deal with this. But it's, life is just far too quick. We do things without thinking now. And, we become so run down in our thoughts and our mental health, because if we're working in an environment that we have to have the job done, and if we're not on top of it, we work deep into the night without sleep. So, that's not a good sign, but it's all about, getting the mental balance. And I believe that we can do this, get the mental balance back in. But it's, once again, it starts off with you. You can have a psychic, you can have a medium to guide you, you can have a therapist to guide you. But if you don't have the will for it to start off with you, it's impossible to move forward, as I said. But I do believe it can be done. And well, you know what, I have to say, I know it can be done because I'm that person that has worked through things and on my own without knowing what I was doing. But that's my whole life story. I've had to work through things to find out. And, once again, it's because I knew I was special.
Excellent. Thank you. We're nearly finished, and we've kind of obviously gone a little bit over time because I wanted to kind of unpack some of these important topics that are coming up throughout society, and I did want this to be a bit more of a people getting to know you today, Maria. I'm wondering if somebody wanted to come to see you as a psychic or a medium, how would they get in touch with you, and what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I do have a website. It's www.mariakrystyna, and I'll spell Krystyna, KRYSTYNA.com.au. I do have a phone number too, which is 0411 017766. Leave a message.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I guess because there's a lot of wait lists at the moment for psychologists and even therapists, and I'm pretty busy myself with my own therapy, and it can be, you know, sometimes a little while to wait to even come to see me as well, despite not having Medicare. It's pretty big out there at the moment, mental health disturbance. Just wondering, what's the wait period, or can you see people straight away? What's that like at the moment for you?
The wait period is roughly 24 hours. Okay, I'm, you know, I work about 5-6 days a week in certain hour frames. But if you ring me up and says I want a reading now, I won't give you a reading now because I don't do emergency readings, and because that tells me instantly that your headspace may not be there, and everything's always booked online. You know, so it's roughly 24 hours. But, you know, my booking system is pretty good. You choose the day, the time that suits you.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. So I'm just going to reiterate, it's Maria Krystyna. It's www.maria, M-A-R-I-A, Krystyna, K-R-Y-S-T-Y-N-A. So 2 Y's in there, .com.au.
Yes.
So you can contact her there. And just if anyone wants to contact me, I'm Renee McDonald, McDonald.com, and aott.com.au for any training that people want to come to of mine. So it's been wonderful chatting to you, Maria. We'll probably be doing this again at roughly a fortnight's time. I'm going to aim for that because it's been busy in therapy and other lands at the moment. It's been even hard to just get this sorted, but we're getting cooking with gas now. Yes. And thank you so much, Maria, for coming on today, and we're going to do this again soon.
Thank you, Renee, for inviting me. It's been lovely. It was a nice experience.
Excellent.
Yeah,
thank you.